What's up everyone, it's your friendly neighborhood French Canadian, and today I will teach you how to become an Earthbender.
I am not Toph, I am MELON Lord!
Now this is a beast incantation build, so our main attributes will be strength and faith. We'll be using incantations as well as fist weapons for melee damage. So this character is based on the fan favorite Toph Beifong from the Avatar series. If you don't know her, well, go watch the series right now. And in just a few seconds, I will explain the entire build to you, how it works, how every spell works, how you can use it, all of that good stuff. And then after, I'll show you everything you need to make this build, the items, the weapons, the incantations, so on and so forth. You know the drill. So I really hope you enjoyed this one because it was super fun to make. And it's also actually really fun to use. So let me tell you a bit about this build and how to fight with it. So basically, you're going to have some AoEs that are really good for up close fights or when there's a lot of enemies around you, surrounding you. And you'll also have some ranged attacks with the incantations we'll be using. So in this fight, apart from me getting hit like 1,000 times and not dodging properly, you'll see that I'll be using the Stone of Goronk a lot because the cast is actually pretty fast. It does some good damage, the range is really good, and you can continuously cast it without waiting for that startup animation again, as long as you have FP. The next thing you want to use against bosses is the Ash of War that we have in our weapon, the Earthshaker. So not only can this poise break enemies, and it will, and I think you'll see it in this footage, it's the most damaging tool we have up our sleeve. So it's really good for boss encounters. Now the second good AoE we have is the Claws of Goronk. Now it's a pretty good AoE. It's probably the most expensive spell we have at 21 FP, but it does some really good damage and it's a really good AoE spell. Now the other one, the regular claw, I mean, I found myself not really using it a lot, but the good thing about it is that you can charge it up to increase the distance at which it travels. So there is that if you like that better, if you don't want to spend that much FP. It's also a pretty good option. Then you have the spell Bestial Vitality that you can use to heal yourself during a fight. It's pretty good if like you're out of flasks or whatever. Actually, it's really gonna help you, but don't expect it to heal you a lot because it heals you for a long period of time, but a very minimal amount. Next, you want to use the Rock Sling on smaller enemies to poise break them. I didn't find it super useful on bosses, so I found myself using it way more on smaller enemies to get that critical. And now for the melee. You want to two-hand your weapon and you want to just go in because you can actually get blood loss proc from the fist weapons we're using because they're spiked. Now the blood loss is only at 45, so it won't happen a lot or often, but it's a pretty good weapon if you're out of FP or whatever, then it's really good to use. And mine are at plus 24 right now. They're not fully leveled up, but they do some pretty freaking good damage for fist weapons. So that's pretty much how you play this build based on one of my favorite characters. You're gonna use some Punchy and you're gonna use some Unga Bunga rock tricks, and it's actually super fun because it's really versatile, and y'all know me, I like when my builds are versatile. Overall, super solid build, and I think you guys will enjoy this a lot. So the build stats for this build are not too complicated. You want points into faith and strength because beast incantations will scale off of strength and faith. And as you can see here, our clawmark seal actually scales with both strength and faith in B scaling, so they're equally important. And that is why, if you look in my build stats, I have 15 strength and 15 faith. I have a 40 in vigor, so we won't get one shot by bosses, and then 30 in mind, because obviously we'll be using FP with the incantations. Now these incantations don't use a lot of FP, like the big incantation we have uses 21, I think, and that's the most that we'll be using at a time. And endurance is at 20, and I put it that low because I wanted more stats in the other attributes, because we'll be using a talisman that will recover our stamina quicker anyways, so that's why I left it at 20. So for our weapons, we'll be using a fist weapon, which is the Castis. I think that's all you say it, I'm really not sure. I'm going to call it the punchy spiky thing. But to get the spiked version of the Punchy, you want to go to Kaled and go to the Isolated Merchant's Shack. He sells one of them for 4,000 runes, I believe. So the awesome thing about fist weapons that I literally learned like 2 days ago from one of my friends in our Discord. And by the way, side note, if you haven't joined the Discord, like there's a lot of people who are very willing and friendly to help you with the game, even if you're a newcomer. So if you want to join, the invite link is in the description box below. So anyways, the cool thing about these things is that you don't need 2 of them to have them on each hand. So basically, this is me one-handing it, and now this is me two-handing it. So it will basically duplicate it on each hand. And like I mentioned, it also changes the combos. So this is the one-hand like combo for R1, and this is the two-hand combo for R1. So it's much quicker. And there's no power stance with the L1, like there's just a sort of block fighting stance thing, but you want to use R1 for this. Now the last item we need in our weapons is a sacred seal, the clawmark seal. Now this clawmark seal not only boosts bestial incantations, but also scales with B in strength and B in faith, as I mentioned before, so it's going to be really good for this build specifically. So like most of the incantations we'll be getting, you can get this at the exact same place. So you need to find an item called the Deathroots. Now I get Deathroots from a few places, from the Mariner mini-boss that you can encounter in most areas of the game. I think there's 4 or 5 of them. And then you'll get Deathroots from boss battles in certain catacombs or heroes' graves, which I know everyone loves those, but it is what it is. That's where we can find all of them, and you'll need all of them to complete this build. So once you have the Deathroots, you can come to the Bestial Sanctum and you give the Deathroots to Garank, and he'll eat them and he'll typically give you a reward after. So if you find that you go there and he's hostile and he's attacking you, actually fight him until you stun him. So like he'll get down and he'll be stunned for a bit. So then you fast travel and then you come back and he'll be fine. And also if you've completed the game like I have, or have fought Malekith, it doesn't matter because he'll just be back at the Bestial Sanctum. So there's no way you can't like get these incantations, and the clawmark seal as well. Now for the Deathroots, there are guides on YouTube for that, but I made a guide for a specific hero's grave, and there is one in there. I believe it was the Gilmere hero's grave, so I made a full complete guide for that. So if you're gonna want to go watch that, I actually show you how to go through all of it and how to get to the boss. So once you defeat the boss, you'll be able to loot a chest, and it has a Deathroot in there. But you'll also be fighting the Mariner sub-boss in the Windham Runes. He's also in Limgrave, in right here, Summon Water Village. And he's also in Liurnia up the lakes, like in this area right here. It doesn't look like there's a lake, but there is, like right here. And you'll also be fighting him in the mountain tops of the Giants, close to the Castle Sol. So like as you go down to Castle Sol, like in this area-ish, he'll be right there as well. But as I said, watch a video if you're not sure where they are, because it will help you, and I needed to use one as well because there's a few that I missed. Once you bring all the 9 Deathroots to him, you'll have all these incantations, and we'll be using all of them with this build. So Beast Claw is like the baby version of Garank's Beast Claw. It only has a like forward trajectory hitbox, while this kind of does a AoE shockwave type of deal. So it's definitely a bit better for like crowd control when you're surrounded by enemies. And then Bestial Sling, what I noticed while using this is that because the hitbox is on the individual small pieces of rock going forward, sometimes it'll actually miss enemies. But if you do hit enemies, you have a chance to poise break them, or stance break them, which is pretty good. Now next is a Stone of Garank, which doesn't cost a ton of FP, but it's the one I use mostly on bosses. It is so freaking good. You can continually cast it by pressing it. So you hit it and then you hit it again and they'll do it, so like you don't have to wait for that whole animation, and it's pretty freaking cool, and it does some really good damage on enemies as well. And finally there's Bestial Vitality, which heals your HP over a period of time. It's not extremely sustainable, but like I guess you can pop it in the middle of a fight or whatever, and it does help, but don't think it will heal you like a major amount because it's really small. So I just want to show you what these look like. This is Beast Claw, and you can hold it to make it go further and wider. Then there's Bestial's Cling, as I mentioned, and you can also recast it really quickly. Then Garank's Beast Claw, which does this AoE type of thing, and it's super cool. And it fits so well like with the Toph build or Earthbender build. It just looks super cool. And the Bestial Vitality is, you know, good old buff, so looks like this. And it lasts like a fair amount of time, so even though it doesn't heal you a lot and it doesn't heal you a lot quickly, you know, it still lasts for a while. Now for the talismans, as I mentioned, we'll be running the green turtle talisman, so it raises your stamina recovery speed, which is going to be really good for us because even though you can like sit back and throw rocks all day, this build is still really good up close, as well with our Ash of War that does a ton of damage and can poise break enemies as well. So you want to do a mix of both really. And next we're going to use the Godskin Swadling Cloth, which restores your HP with successive attacks. As I mentioned, we're using this because specifically the Ash of War will give us the ability. So if you're like in a dungeon and you're running low on some flasks, then you can just use this on a group of enemies and then you'll have some health back. But this is totally optional. You can use like a Rotten Sword Talisman or something like that. It really depends on what you want. Now the Shard of Alexander greatly boosts the attack power of skills, so it will boost the Earthshaker, Ash of War. And next we'll be using the Faithful's Canvas Talisman to raise the power of our incants. Now I've shown in videos before where to get the Faithful Canvas's Talisman. I'll link the video so you can go watch that, and as well as the Shard of Alexander. But basically you can get this at the end of Alexander's questline in the Crumbling Farum. For the Godskin Swadling Cloth, you need to go to the mountaintops of the giants, and you need to go in the Spirit Color Cave, I believe it's called. It's right here next to the Freezing Lake. It's extremely close to it. So you have to go in the Spirit Color Cave, and you have to fight the boss, which is a Godskin duo, and upon defeating them, you'll get this talisman. Now the Green Turtle Talisman is super easy. You need a stone sword to unlock the Fog Gate, and all you need to do is come to the Summon Water Village. And you make your way through here. You'll be fighting a one of the mini bosses you need to get a Deathroot from anyways, so at the same time you're doing that, you can come up here and pick up this talisman. So you'll see there's like turtles around here, and you come down here and you'll be able to loot the talisman from a chest. There's no enemies or anything down there. Now the Ashes of War we'll be using on our main hand weapon is Horalu's Earthshaker. And you'll get this from fighting him, not the first version of him in the capital, but the second version of him where he turns into a WWE wrestler. And it beats the crap out of you with his grabs. So once you get his remembrance, you bring it back to Round Table Hold and you can buy this Ash of War. So that is the build, guys. You should have everything at this point. And I think it's one of probably the strongest character themed builds that I've made. I really try to stick to the character instead of just making it super OP, but I think all builds in this game, to a certain extent, are viable. It really depends on what kind of level of challenge you want. This build was extremely fun to do because it's a character that I really, really love. And also, if you want that outfit, it's basically the Earth Tree Protectors, the Guardian set. So all you need to do is go near any of the minor Earth Trees or whatever, and you can farm it from them. I farmed it from the one in Caelid, I think. There was a lot of them there, so it was pretty easy. I think it was, yeah, right here. So I went and farmed in this area, and it took me literally like 10 minutes and I got everything. And so thank you so much for watching, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed this build. And if you want more, there are plenty more Elden Ring videos on my channel. So have yourself a wonderful day. I'll see you all very soon.